So we are continuing the realistic portrait drawing guide by starting to render this in detail. So in the previous episode we had created a grid which helped us outline the subject and get an idea of where everything needs to be. It helps with the proportions, and so now we can start confidently working into this, creating the necessary textures and details. And so I'll talk about the whole approach that I'm taking with this one as I get into it. So I've covered quite a few methods for this kind of drawing on the channel in the past, and with each one I try and take a different approach and explain some new techniques. Now for this one we are going to be jumping right in and rendering the whole drawing completely from one point. I used to work like this when I did a lot of these kind of portraits back in the day, and I wouldn't even use a grid. I'd just start from one point, observe the reference image, and then start drawing it. So as you probably guessed, it's a pretty time consuming process, so a lot of patience and attention is required. Also, because this kind of drawing takes a long time, it's hard for me to condense all of the footage down to a video, therefore this is in a time lapse. Now, all of the real-time footage for this drawing will be over on the Patreon page as usual, so if you want to sit through that and study it in real time, I'll leave a link in the description. For this video, I'll be drawing out the eyes and the nose and some of the surrounding areas, so I'll just talk a bit about how I approach these things whilst this footage is on screen. So as you are watching this, try and pay attention to the marks that I create with the pencil and how they come together to form a suitable texture. I started with the left eye, one reason being that I draw with my right hand, and so if I draw from left to right, I won't be smudging the drawing as I work. Also, I normally start with the eyes when I draw a portrait like this because it's important to get those right. If the eyes aren't correct, then it will throw the whole drawing off. So it's a good idea to try and get those drawn in and out of the way at the start, and then using the reference image along with the grid we created digitally, I'm able to add in details and outline areas as I go. I was just working with the mechanical pencil at this stage, and once I'm happy with how things appear, I swap over to the 8B pencil and I start to darken some areas. I pretty much go over most of it again and really make the contrast stand out, and you'll see me doing that as I work forward. I'm always referring to the image I'm working from, seeing where the small details are, using the grid for assistance. So this approach that I'm taking, where I'm rendering the entire drawing from one point, might appear quite challenging at first, but it's actually quite simple. Throughout the entire process, I'm just observing the reference image and looking for the small marks and the details that I'm going to have to recreate with the pencil, the textures and the details, and all of these things come together to make the image. Now, this means that all I need to figure out is how to control the pencil effectively so that we can produce these textures. Seeing as we are working from a photograph, all the information that we need is there for us, and we just have to carefully recreate that. Try and consider the pressure you apply with the pencil in order to create some different shades. Also, the motion of the pencil will create different marks, and then you can layer these pencil marks for more varied results. Anyone can draw like this if they take their time to observe what they are drawing. I'm going to go ahead and let this play out for a bit, and I'll slow down the footage in some areas. So at this point you've probably seen the approach that I take when I do this drawing, and I continue to do the same thing. I start by drawing most of it out with the mechanical pencil, and then I go over it again with the darker 8B pencil. At that point I might pick up the eraser and make some highlights and lighten some certain areas. You'll see me using the Mono Zero eraser a lot when I draw in the hair, and I'll be doing a full video explaining some of the techniques that I use when I create hair when I get to that part in this drawing. But another piece of advice is to always keep the 8B pencil as sharp as possible, especially when it comes to drawing those finer details like the hairs or details around the pupil. And I want to mention that I normally work in layers, meaning that I might start off by putting down a base layer of shading, and then I work into it creating a texture, and then I continue working over that with numerous textures and details until I achieve something that I'm happy with. So again, I'll let this continue playing, and this is in time lapse, but all of the real time footage, like I said, will be uploaded on Patreon. I think everything that I had drawn in this episode totaled up to about 4 hours, which is actually quite quick. I'd recommend going even slower if you are a beginner. So we are coming to an end with this episode, and I hope some of the stuff that I have talked about was helpful. It's hard to go through anything like this step by step because it's just the same process throughout the entire drawing. Remember that your focus is on texture and detail when it comes to portraits like this, and in order to get better at them, focus on how you control the pencil, the pressure you apply, and the marks that you make as a result. Always draw in consideration with what you observe in the reference image, but that's pretty much it for this one. So there we go everyone, that is the second episode of this realistic portrait drawing guide, and like I said, I'm going to be doing some episodes covering the whole process of the entire drawing. I think in the next one we'll start doing some skin texture, covering the forehead, and then we'll do the facial hair, the background, the clothing, all of that stuff. So if you want to subscribe and keep up to date, then you can do that, and like the video if you want to see more because it helps me out. Also feel free to check out the Patreon, and yeah, that's pretty much everything. Thank you for watching, I'll see you in the next one.